sign an MOU. We'll do more together. Next, we'd like to go online to our friend from Malaysia, Dr. Sundra Rajoo. He heads up our AALCO's, you've heard AALCO have 6 international arbitration centers, and Datuk heads up our arbitration center in Malaysia, and it goes by AIAC. I'll let Datuk introduce the center and his work and some new developments in Malaysia and other parts of the region. Over to you. Oh, we can't hear you yet.
Let me unmute.
Voice.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Nick. Distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you and greetings from Malaysia. First, I would like to apologize that I'm not there in Hong Kong in person, which I usually do. But also extend my sincere appreciation of the understanding of the situation, and also for inviting me to be part of this panel. I think setting in context, the regional center, the first regional center for arbitration that was established under the auspices of AALCO was at that time in Kuala Lumpur in 1978. In 1978, AALCO's first regional center was named the Regional Center for Arbitration Kuala Lumpur. Thereafter, it was followed by the center in Cairo. The first one in 1978 was in July 1978. The second one in Cairo in Africa was in October 1978. So I think, as Nick has pointed out, the number of centers have grown. I think this is quite important because it's a testament of the emergence of Asia and Africa using international organizations as arbitral centers. There are 3 forms that arbitral centers can take. Basically, one is which is set up by, let's say, municipal, provincial, and central governments, which is basically the model that is adopted in China. The second one is the one which is set up by a company, a private company, limited by guarantee or a trust arrangement, which is the type that is in Singapore and in even ICC or in Hong Kong. And the third type is, of course, the AALCO centers, which is the international organization or international body under the auspices host in the country with immunities and privileges. The idea, I think, as Nick pointed out, is the Bandung Conference in the 1950s was aimed in a very difficult political era just after the war to bring together both Africa and Asia, and to some extent to deal with the decolonization that was going on at that time. So I think the importance of national independence and to promote peace at that time. And I believe that these principles still remain relevant. It remained relevant to our role as in dispute resolution institutions, because peace is what parties look for other than time efficiency and cost savings. The ultimate aim of dispute resolution is to promote peace between the parties. So I've looked at the title of this forum, and I'm reminded of our shared history, our rich diversity, China, India, Asia, Africa, and more importantly, the values that we share as crystallized starting from the Bandung Conference. Today, I would always say that we are witnessing the Asian century and perhaps the African century. And there are many challenges to overcome. We, as the 2 continents, both Asia and Africa, are very diverse. We see tensions, but there's sometimes lack of cooperation. But the manner of cooperation is more extensive. The important thing is that it is an important point that we need to understand globalization both as a blessing and a curse, which exists in all global economic competition. So it is now very important, and this conference is timely for us, both in Asia and Africa, as arbitral institutions coming together towards a more cohesive partnership and benefit from our shared economic growth. Dispute resolution, particularly alternative dispute resolution, which is anything outside of the court, is a key area where we notice changes due to the economic changes actually in our region. There are new areas which niche disputes such as technology disputes, ESG, environment, social governance disputes, and even sports arbitration. We are also witnessing, as my colleague from Lili from Beijing Arbitration Commission showed, specific to China, changes in the law. And this is actually not limited. Changes in the law, changes in our institutional rules, and all kinds of other policies to promote and streamline ADR mechanisms. And I think one of the important things that we must realize that everybody is moving in tandem. All our structures are moving in tandem. The courts, our courts, are taking a more proactive, pro-arbitration, pro-ADR compared to the time past. And I will try to address some of these issues in both in Malaysia, India, and perhaps I'll look at the Middle East a little bit, and then I'll talk about new changes. Now, where Malaysia is concerned, the main change, legislative change, occurred in 2018 when we became completely model law compliant. We amended our Arbitration Act and completely made it very, very close to the model law as it is now. And I think of course, the most important organization, the key organization where ADR is concerned is the Asian International Arbitration Center, which I head, and it has grown and it's evolved beyond. And we actually now represent the epicenter of dispute resolution in Malaysia. And we are hoping to emerge as a player in contributing to the global arena. This year, in August 2023, we introduced revisions to the arbitration rules, our mediation rules, and also we have one particular set of rules that not many people, many institutions have, which is the Islamic arbitration rules. We went back to our roots. We used the Ancestral Arbitration Rules 2021 as the base and amended it, institutionalized it by having the AIAC arbitration rules, adopting and administering using the ancestral rules. So I think this is our response to the changing times. We wanted to make sure that the ADR process remains up to date and in line with the realities of the ground. Okay, some of the changes, the 2023 arbitration rules, which incorporates the Ancestral Arbitration Rules 2021, provides for transparency. This is something that we had a little bit more in third-party funding. That means we have disclosure requirements. Although we don't have any legislation in Malaysia to allow third-party funding, but the rules itself actually recognizes that third-party funding is a normal thing now in arbitration. Perhaps it will be a normal thing in litigation, and in our more advanced, more progressive jurisdictions like Hong Kong and Singapore, they have been dealt with in legislation. So we have allowed it in the rules. And the other one is the I rules, the Islamic arbitration rules. We cater for the Islamic community, more of the finance community, where they are actually raising money in terms of bonds called sukuk and other kinds of instruments using Sharia principles. Now, one change that we are doing, we are going to issue a new set of Sharia compliant building contracts. That's actually, we are shifting towards compliance, going for dispute avoidance. There are three parts what an ADR institution does: dispute avoidance, dispute settlement, and dispute resolution. So different methods of ADR fall under different ways. And I think one of the things that we did earlier was to issue standard form building contracts in Malaysia. Because the standard form, we've realized that, let's say, about half our work deals with the construction industry. And one of the reasons why disputes are so rife in the construction industry is due to poorly written contracts, or contracts that are vague or lopsided, so leading to further disputes. So I think dispute prevention is becoming one of the important things, and I'll talk about it in ASG later, which is a more of compliance. And then the other thing is that we continue to maintain our diverse panel of arbitrators. We do statutory adjudication, one of the few countries in the world that we have a statutory adjudication scheme to deal with payment issues in the construction industry. And then amendments that are now today, I'm supposed to attend a meeting in the government department to amend and set up a new mediation regime. So I think one of the commitments I think the country has, or the polity has, is a commitment to neutrality and upholding of procedural integrity. I think we have arbitrators on our panel from all over the world. The emphasis in recent months have been more to get Asian and African arbitrators so that we can deal with this issue of diversity by nationality and also gender diversity. I want to talk a little bit about Dubai, because we have been actually quite, Malaysia being a majority Muslim country, has very close links with the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Countries. And we have great interest and links with the Middle East. And one of the things that we watch the events and the activities, and I think also the unfolding of how their dispute resolution mechanism is working. And of course, we know in 2021 in Dubai, there was, earlier, Dubai has always had the DIFC, which is based on an aircraft carrier concept, the International Commercial Court, which is actually put in almost like what is now seen in Beijing, coming out with this pilot free trade zone area, which is basically an aircraft carrier concept detached from the rest of the jurisdiction. And I think DIFC is sitting in this aircraft carrier, which has common law in the sea of civil law. So I think one of the things that happened in 2021, all the institutions were in the Emirate of Emirate of Dubai was actually abolished and concentrated into the DIAC, which is the Dubai International Arbitration Center. I think that was quite drastic, and it is quite interesting to see the effects of it until now. And I think this is also a lesson for us not to do things in a drastic way, but to do it in a gradual way. And this is what we have some difficulties. The next jurisdiction I want to go to is India. India, unlike China, most of the arbitrations are ad hoc. And there are some arbitral institutions, but not as well established as in China. Because Chinese institutions, there are 247 institutions. India, I counted about 21, and at various degree of development. The main method of dealing with change in the arbitral and dispute resolution process is the use of legislation. And I think they have always used the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996 and amended it. One main amendment where they tried to control the process of arbitration across the board in dealing with these delays and time efficiencies and cost issues by putting a statutory timeline for arbitrators to complete their work. So you are given 1 year plus 6 months. If you do not complete by that 1 year, 6 months, you have to apply for an extension to the Indian court. So originally, when in 2015, when this amendment came out, there was an outcry from the international community. And of course, now they have amended it. It doesn't apply to the international arbitrations in India. But the second thing is the trying to use legislation to regulate the arbitral community regulations, setting up standards and all these things by the use of what is called, which is still not confirmed, is the Indian Council of Arbitration 2019 Act came out, amendment came out with that. And then they actually abolished it recently in the 2021 arbitration amendment. But the real issue will, which way will India go? Will it be by internationalization in arbitration, or will it by nationalization? So I think we all are waiting to understand what it is. So I want to move on to certain two areas where this interesting development, the buzzword nowadays is environmental social governance, ESG, which is an umbrella term that refers to all kinds of environmental social governance issues and aspects of activity. Most important, it is related to what is known as corporate social responsibility, CSR. And in simple terms, it means that a business management and governance concept where the organization itself aims to create, by way of a strategy, a positive impact, and then sets out the objectives in its commercial activities and tries to do responsible investment. Now, it affects all of us, particularly I see it as an extension from the West. This concept came out from the West. I mean, some people, I'm a bit more critical, thinking that it is a Western concept that seems to extend power in a different way. But nevertheless, we are faced with it because it will lead to, at times, the cycles have to be actually, if you're having a supply cycle, you have to comply with the ESG requirement of the original source where it's going back to deliver the goods. So I think there is obviously going to be disputes coming out from it, especially for the compliance part. And I suppose we cannot run away from it. One way that may happen, my own reading, is that organizations, manufacturing people will start to integrate vertically within their own system. But I think now ESG has become part of our lives. We have to deal with it. It is part of the Paris Agreement in 2016, adopted by 196 countries on climate change. And then I think, this is going to be the one that we in Asia and Africa will have to look at it carefully and deal with it. So I think one of the things where I believe arbitration will play a great part is that because arbitrators are independent with special ability, it is better than the courts. So I think, and again, the enforcement under the New York Convention of Arbitral Awards makes it almost completely effective. And again, you can actually even obtain interim relief and injunctions where there is irreversible environmental damage or gross That's one of the things that we have difficulty sometimes. Human rights, gross human rights violation. You know, I mean, what does that mean? You know, to different countries means different things. So I think we will have to deal with that, and this is one of the things that it is coming. Of course, another one is I want to talk about. I'm using up my time. I want to talk about sports disputes. One of the things that is lacking in Asia and Africa, we are crazy about sports. I think you go to Africa, everybody knows FIFA. But if you go to Asia, we are all great sporting nations. But all our sports disputes seem to be resolved eventually in Switzerland or in Europe by CAS. So I think one of the things that we have been interested in Malaysia, we have come up with our sports arbitration rules, and in January this year, next year, we will be setting up the Asian Sports Tribunal, and we will be empaneling arbitrators, and we already have the rules. We are building capacity, and we hope to actually retain and also encourage for disputes in Asia and perhaps Africa to be resolved within the regions and before it goes elsewhere. The other thing that also we are becoming aware of is the issue of diversity. But the diversity is not gender diversity that I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about actually ethnic and nationality diversity. One of the things that we realize in Asia, while we produce the most number of disputes, for example, in LMAA, 50% of the maritime arbitration disputes in LMAA in London is actually Chinese. But I have not heard of a Chinese arbitrator on LMAA. So LMAA. I'm not aware. It's maybe my ignorance. But I think it just does call for more diversity in the sense that disputes coming from Asia, from Africa, not because it is we are xenophobic. There should be an opportunity for our Asian and African arbitrators to come out and decide these disputes. So Nick, I'm going to stop here. I've used up all my time.
No?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Please put your hand together for Datuk Sundra Rajoo. Very informative as always. He's a good brother.